Wade is explaining here, not in technical terms, because he's not an expert in this field, is the process of grooming.
And you are an expert.
Well, I have become an expert, and actually I worked on this case, by the way. I know there's been a lot of comments on the websites when I've talked about this, that I know nothing about this trial. Actually, I was the profiler that worked this case, the sexual assault trial, back in 2004, 2005. Unfortunately, I got cancer right in the middle of it, and was going through chemo and then a bone marrow transplant when the trial actually happened. Although I was involved in every interview that occurred, the grand jury testimony, I was fully briefed on all of that, and I was in contact with the attorneys in the case. Had I not gotten cancer, I would have probably testified in that trial.
You were in contact with the alleged victim, too?
Yes. And other victims who came forward who were precluded from bringing a case because of the statute of limitations. Wade Robeson came forward and testified on behalf of Michael Jackson. And actually, he was a very credible witness at the time. But the problem is that people can actually lie when they testify. And unfortunately, for Wade, because now he's going through the difficult process of having to undo those lies, but also it's unfortunate for the victims that were actually testifying in that case, because obviously his testimony, whatever it was, it may have just been one straw but that broke the camel's back, but obviously the jury believed that Michael did not sexually victimize them, and we can't go back and revisit that, and I'm not trying to.
When you testified in 2005, did Michael Jackson or anyone working for him offer you money to say the things you said? Did they tell you you must lie on the stand at that time?
No, there was no money. There was no you must lie. Michael, when he would talk to me before these things were going on, and he would call me every day as these things were happening, it was complete manipulation and brainwashing. It wasn't any sense of the truth on the phone. He would role play with me and train me for these scenarios.
When I hear Wade Robeson describe his relationship with Michael, I see that ambivalence. I see him saying that, you know, yeah, I love this man. I mean, he did wonderful things for me. But at the same time, he took advantage of me. I didn't see it that way at the time. And it took me going through a couple of nervous breakdowns and going through therapy to be able to stand on his own 2 feet and say this. And the thing that I can say that most supports what he's doing is the fact that he is a heterosexual male who has now gone on international television and said that he was involved in a sexual relationship with an adult male from the time he was 7 years old to 14, I believe. I think that's the time frame that he's talking about, but over the course of about 7 years. It's a very difficult thing for a heterosexual male to do. And he says, and I'm inclined to believe him, and obviously people out there can make their own determinations, but I'm inclined to believe that his motivation, he says, is that I have a boy now. And if any man tried to do to my son what Michael did with me, then that would be horrendous. So in order to try to prevent that, he said he has to come forward and tell the truth. So everybody says that he's doing this just for the money and so on and so forth. But actually, the fact is that this is the only way he can make a legal claim, actually be put into a position where he may eventually have to get on a stand and testify and talk about this. If he said this to, just said this to the news or said this to friends or whatever, there's no accountability for it. Nobody's ever going to be able to test that. But in this situation, they will test it. They are testing it.